Knowledge is power. These words of wisdom couldn't be more true when it comes to the world of cryptocurrency. Now, in this video, I'll be going over my 6 favorite crypto books that you should probably have on your reading list. As always, I'll be giving you an overview of each one and explaining exactly why they are on my bookshelf. Before I get cracking, there is an important public service announcement that needs to be made. Yes, I went to university, but all I got was this admittedly rather natty t-shirt. That therefore means that despite being an erudite scholar of all things crypto, I am not a financial advisor. Everything in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. With that clarification out of the way, I want to say good morning, afternoon, and evening to all the new viewers out there. The name is Guy, and I am your crypto guy. This channel is dedicated to helping everyone brush up on that crypto knowledge. So, if that sounds like something useful to you, then you can sign up for those insightful videos. All that needs to be done is for you to tap that subscribe button and bosh that little notification bell. That way you'll know whenever I serve up another crypto video. One more thing, please observe the timestamps below. They are there for speed watchers amongst you who might want to jump ahead to the book that interests you the most. But be warned, doing so may mean that you miss out on a valuable source of crypto knowledge. Okay, ready to know what books this bookworm likes chewing his way through? Well, read on. To get things started, I want to be straight up and just say that this list is in no particular order. After all, we're all interested in different facets of the cryptosphere, and it would be pretty disingenuous to just say that one particular book was best for everyone. Okay, so first up, I have Cryptocurrency, The Future of Money by Paul Vigner and Michael J. Casey. Now, right off the bat, I need to say that this one probably isn't the one for those technophiles out there. It won't provide you with a deep dive into the super technical aspects of Bitcoin and crypto, but as an overview, it's hard to beat and gets just technical enough without making the head spin. But who do I think should dedicate the time to reading this? Well, anyone who is new to crypto and trying to wrap their heads around the basic principles of Bitcoin and altcoins. To really understand that, you'll need to know about how traditional finance works, the history of money, and how a shared belief is required to give money value. Well, this book does all that in depth, while remaining accessible to those of us who don't have a PhD in economics. The book also does a great job of running through the formative ideas that shaped Bitcoin's development and the bootstrapping of the Bitcoin network back in the day. It really is a colourful story that everyone in crypto should know about. Yes, there were technical issues, but what's also really interesting is the social development of a community to support Bitcoin. All that is covered here too. Now, given that this book was first published in 2015, I found it fascinating to read the thoughts of the authors on the potential impact that Bitcoin could have on the world's financial system and economy, as well as their thoughts on how different nations and regulators might deal with cryptocurrencies. A few of those predictions might just have already come true. Isn't hindsight a wonderful thing? Now, its exploration of Bitcoin's early days and the industry that began to spring up around it is also fascinating. Many of the companies and initiatives the authors talk about eventually came to nothing, but it's still a must-read for anyone interested in the development and evolution of the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. You'll also notice plenty of names who went on to become stalwarts of the crypto community, and seeing how they started out makes for a great read too. So what this tome provides is the necessary context for the technology and a deeper understanding of why crypto could well be the future of money. Also, if you're the type of person who wants to engage in those debates about crypto versus central bank-controlled fiat currency, then this is probably the book for you. Now, it's also worth noting that the authors are 2 highly respected contributors to the Wall Street Journal, which makes this book all the more valuable, in my opinion. This is because they approach crypto from an outsider's perspective and bring all their journalistic insight to bear on the topic. We've seen far too many instances of mainstream media figures failing to get to grips with crypto, but these guys absolutely nail it. But what if you've been in crypto for some time and are more interested in learning about the people behind Bitcoin in its infancy? Well, let's move on to that. My second book pick is titled Digital Gold, The Untold Story of Bitcoin, and it's authored by Nathaniel Popper. Now, honestly, I think this one is a great introduction to Bitcoin. Yes, the practical technology is explained in a pretty straightforward way, but what I found more interesting here was the economic and philosophical slant on good old BTC. Nathaniel points out that Alan Greenspan predicted, all the way back in the 1990s, that globalization and the internet could spawn the emergence of a new currency suitable for that new world, which I guess has now become a reality. The book also outlines the differences between countries when it comes to Bitcoin's social acceptance. An example of this is the case of Wences Casares, an Argentine billionaire who got super interested in BTC because he grew up in a nation ravaged by inflation. But why would that ignite an interest in Bitcoin? Well, even now, the US dollar is the global reserve currency and is somehow viewed as a safe asset for people to store the value of their savings. Naturally, that hands over immense power to the Federal Reserve. Not the best position to be in, really, especially because that money printer seems to be going brrr a lot these days. Now, the book is mainly focused on the story of Bitcoin from the early days and captures the optimism of the ideologically motivated players and the more criminal elements surrounding Bitcoin too. Yes, things like the Silk Road. Anyhow, if you want to learn more about the key contributors to Bitcoin up until around 2015 and landmarks in Bitcoin's history, like Bitcoin Pizza Day, then this is the book for you. Also, if the mystery of Bitcoin's anonymous founder intrigues you, then you might be interested in learning about the top Satoshi candidates and the evidence that supports their cases. So if that's something that tickles your pickle, then you'll want to watch this video I prepared earlier. And honestly, folks, I remember reading this book back in the day when I was starting to learn about Bitcoin, and I tell you, it did me the world of good and really helped me get to grips with the subject. But what if you're more interested in BTC's potential impact on the future? Well, I have a thought-provoking option for you coming up next. My third crypto book pick is titled The Truth Machine, The Blockchain and the Future of Everything. Sounds like the kind of book that most of us can get on board with, right? Well, first up, you should know that this book is a follow-up by Paul Vigna and Michael J. Casey again. Yes, those chaps who wrote Cryptocurrency, The Future of Money. Having had their interest in blockchain peaked when writing about cryptocurrency for their first book, the authors here focus on blockchain's potential from a macro perspective. But what do I mean by that? Well, if the future seen in the book comes to pass, we'll see the biggest employment shakeup the world has ever seen. You see, historically, the most vulnerable jobs to labour market disruption are what are unaffectionately termed low-skilled labour. That's jobs like factory workers, retail store assistants, who have already had a rough enough time over the last year or so, and clerks. However, the authors foresee a world where lawyers will be replaced by smart contracts. Also, those poor bankers and investment portfolio managers would be out of a job too. Essentially, the type of professions that people like to call white collar. So yeah, this book outlines a future where the current white collar workers are going to see a tidal wave of change. Vigna and Casey also outline some pretty interesting applications for blockchain too. One such example is the World Food Programme, or WFP for short. This is a UN agency that feeds over 95 million people worldwide. What's interesting is that the WFP put 10,000 Azraq refugees through a pilot that leveraged blockchain tech to distribute food. The idea here was to try and ensure that everyone got their food entitlement and that people were not double spending their entitlements. Quite an important thing in a refugee camp where criminals commonly steal and hoard food for profit. That one example does show how blockchain can and has been leveraged for administrative purposes. Pretty neat. Now, I don't want to spoil this book too much for you, but it's certainly not too tech-heavy a read and covers a plethora of potential applications for blockchain, which I think many of you will find thought-provoking. The book is available on Amazon, obviously, but you can also listen to it for nothing if you sign up for an Audible free trial. Jeff is rich enough already, right? Now, what happens if you're looking for a read that covers a bit of everything and explains that tech in a relatively straightforward way? The Basics of Bitcoins and Blockchain by Anthony Lewis is honestly one of the best intros to the world of crypto and related topics I have ever read. It's actually the book I recommend the most to friends who are just starting off in crypto. It all starts off with the history of money and the different forms it has taken through the ages. Think about barter systems, commodities like gold and silver, and finally fiat currency. All that is pretty essential when it comes to understanding truly what money is. Then you get the lowdown on how the banking system actually works and how payments are made from an account perspective. Yes, this sounds like the thing that only wannabe bankers or accountants need to know. However, it's exceptionally important to understand that system and how it is full of intermediaries. After all, it is that system which Bitcoin effectively competes against and was designed to replace. So, with that knowledge on the history of money, what it is, and the current financial system, you should be able to see the value of crypto as an alternative. Context is, after all, everything. But what about the tech? Well, Anthony does a fantastic job of explaining terms that crypto YouTubers, like me, sometimes throw around without a second thought, or indeed without a detailed explanation. That includes stuff like digital signatures, hash functions, public and private keys, all key stuff, pardon the pun, for knowing how crypto works. And all that in straightforward English too. There are also plenty of illustrations that help lay out the more technical stuff more accessibly, particularly useful for things like explaining the frankly Byzantine ways in which banks transfer money between themselves. If you thought crypto had a lot going on under the bonnet, well, just wait till you see how complex fiat can get. Next, the book goes on to talk about the challenges that blockchain solves. That includes things like bank accounts magicked up by centralized entities like Santander. Essentially, the author explains the main problems that are rife in the current financial system and how blockchain can remedy them. In my humble opinion, those examples make for a very effective learning tool. So I wouldn't be skipping any of these parts. And what I respect particularly is that this book also covers some of the weaknesses of crypto too. That includes things like 51% attacks and wallet security. After reading this, I think you'll understand why so many people invest in a hardware wallet. Now, if you want to learn about the benefits of these devices and which ones are the market leaders at the moment, then you'll want to check out the vid over here. Okay, it's on to our next book, and this is written by perhaps one of the smartest people in the crypto space, a true stalwart of crypto education. At 5, I have The Internet of Money, written by Andreas Antonopoulos. Now, in case you have no idea who he is, let me indulge you. Andreas loved Bitcoin so much that back in 2012, he basically sacked off his job to add value to the Bitcoin ecosystem by speaking at conferences, consulting for crypto startups, and writing a bunch of articles on Bitcoin too. Andreas also runs one of the most underappreciated YouTube channels out there. Seriously, guys, I'd recommend you subscribe to his channel and get those pearls of wisdom from one of the brightest minds in crypto. Link to that is in the description below. Now, The Internet of Money contains a collection of essays about crypto. Now, as the type of guy that doesn't have too much time on his hands, I quite appreciate this format. But what are those essays about? Well, the historical, political, social, philosophical, and economic aspects of crypto. I have to say there are several concepts contained within that have actually shaped the way I personally view crypto. One of those would be the idea of infrastructure inversion. Now, Andreas explains this concept by giving the example of a bygone age where cars were only just becoming a thing. But there was one major problem back then. Those cars were trying to use infrastructure created for horses and carts. So what was that infrastructure? Well, it was dirt roads, pretty suboptimal for these newfangled motor cars that were starting to appear, which would have made many wonder how on earth they would ever catch on. Those with horses would have looked down and laughed at the poor fools tooling around in cars, especially when it rained and the cars got stuck in the mud. But as time passed, asphalt roads came into being. The motorcar driver began to find life a lot easier, and faster, you'd imagine too. Yes, a horse could still gallop down those roads, but the age of the car had dawned and the horse's days were numbered. Now, the key takeaway here is that new technology opens up new possibilities that could not be seen before the infrastructure inversion happened. In this example, that infrastructure was the asphalt road. Now, we actually see similar infrastructure inversions in tech all the time. I'm going to show my age here, but I remember the time of dial-up modems. Essentially, this was a pretty primitive internet which leveraged phone line infrastructure, and I clearly remember my mum booting me off the internet by taking a phone call. Needless to say, dial-up was a terrible way to transmit data. However, the demand for the internet exploded, and that meant that phone providers essentially morphed into internet providers. That was essentially one huge infrastructure inversion. Now, when I was a kid using dial-up internet, did I really envision that one day I'd be creating YouTube videos? Funny how things turn out, eh? Now we can take the concept of infrastructure inversion and then apply it to crypto. The truth is that this inversion has not happened quite yet, but we could be close with ETH 2.0 just around the corner. That scaling solution could be what crypto needs to really unlock its true potential. That's network potential and applications that we probably cannot even see right now. Exciting stuff indeed. Now, you can actually learn more about the potential of Ethereum 2.0 by watching, my most recent video on it, and that is linked to in the top right. Anyhow, if you're interested in the disruptive potential of crypto and the solutions that might just be opened up by it, then you'll want to grab a copy of The Internet of Money. I've provided a link to it below. But what if you're the type of person that feels uneasy when those crypto markets dip by double digits? Maybe you need to read a little something to help you hodl with diamond hands. Well, my sixth and final pick has to be The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. I simply cannot leave this one off any crypto book list. It is the sacred text for Bitcoiners and one of the most important books of its kind ever written. In my humble opinion, it provides the clearest explanation of what money actually is. This kicks off with a bit of a trip down memory lane in regards to the early types of money and presents gold as the ultimate form of money. But if that was the case, why did Ammous not write a book all about gold? Well, those wise people heading up the world's governments kind of ruined that system by coming off the gold standard and replacing it with faith-backed paper rectangles instead. Those paper rectangles in your wallets and purses are, of course, fiat currency. Now, I covered this in greater detail in a video on the fiat currency system, which I'll leave a link to in the top right. Now, that fiat money system actually set the stage for Bitcoin, which Ammous talks about as the innovation of a lifetime and something so disruptive that we'll never see anything quite like it again. Now, I need to be straight up and say that Ammous is a true Bitcoin maximalist. So, if you're a big altcoin dabbler or into blockchain tech in general, then you're likely to get somewhat ticked off by this book. There's also a digression on art, which may raise a few eyebrows too, though you've got to hand it to Professor Ammous for shooting from the hip. I mean, he also calls every altcoin a scam whose only utility is to act as a means for traders to speculate. He essentially believes that all altcoins will die, with Bitcoin eventually being the only crypto in town, the one which solves any real problems. Well, I guess he didn't see any value in Ethereum back then. Now, those who have subscribed to my free newsletter will know that I personally hold a pretty diversified portfolio. So yes, I don't personally agree with everything in this book, but in spite of that, I do think it is an excellent read for those who want to learn about the history of money, what money is, monetary policy, and how this all connects with the mighty Bitcoin. Oh yes, if you're interested in signing up to my free newsletter, then you can do that by clicking the link in the description. Every Sunday, I send that bad boy out, and in it you'll find my latest portfolio updates, thoughts on the market, tips, and crypto trends I've been following over the week. Now, that's about all I have to say for today, folks, but I do have a few final thoughts to share. It might seem odd for me to say this as a crypto YouTuber, but I truly believe that no one should get all their information from a single source. This includes not just the types of channels you watch, but also the places you go to get your information. Speaking for myself, I find it much easier sometimes to retain information that I'd read in a book as opposed to that I'd read off a screen. Mind you, I am getting on a bit. Anyway, as a video creator myself, I can also tell you that it's just not feasible to re-explain every technical term in every video. Another thing I would urge you to think about is the benefit of having a critical eye when it comes to consuming any crypto content. Don't trust, verify, and this goes for my channel too, folks. One of the main benefits that I personally value about crypto books as a content medium is that there is simply less noise on hot altcoins, which could make you act impulsively. That's a much better learning environment, if you ask me. Anyhow, if you want to grab any one of the books I've mentioned in this video, then be sure to check out the links below. If audiobooks are your thing, then you might want to check if that title you want is available for free on Audible and save yourself a few quid into the bargain. And now I want to hear your thoughts, folks. So, what is your favorite crypto book? And do you have any questions for me? Let me know in the comments. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, then help a crypto bro out and karate chop that like button. If you want to see more videos from me, then don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay cryptic, guys, and I'll see you all very soon.